An identity crisis can be many things. Losing your sense of purpose, a midlife crisis, returning to civilian life, or simply feeling like you don't belong. My life has been one ongoing identity crisis after another. I've started this podcast to help deal with my own demons and negative self-talk, and to ultimately and hopefully learn that I'm not alone, and that these thoughts and feelings aren't unique to me. So if this helps you too, then one by one we can come together, heal ourselves, and move forward with our goals and dreams with a sense of belief, happiness, and purpose. Hi, welcome back to the Identity Crisis Podcast. I'm JNewtz, and my guest today is, I'm going to call him a bit of a superstar and a legend. He runs a program called Mantastic, but before then he ran a business called TomFit. He's an inspiration to so many people all around the world. My guest today is Mr. Tommy Bellman. How are you, sir?
JNewtz, I am Mantastic, brother. Always great to have a conversation with you, mate.
Oh, likewise. And look, for those people out there who haven't heard of you or Mantastic, look, it's an amazing program, and we'll definitely get into a lot of depth about it through this conversation. But I've been lucky enough to know you for, I think, 3 or maybe up to almost 4 years now, and the support that you've given me and loads of other men as well, around the world, I think is just amazing. So before we get into Mantastic, talk to me about your journey. Like, how did you come from being Tommy Bellman out of school? Let's talk about getting into PT and TomFit and everything else in between.
Yeah, well, I guess on the theme of the show, mate, I can give you a few different identities that I've had over the years, because I've evolved from a gamer, a video gamer and computer builder, to a BMX rider. Went from riding BMX and crashing my bike and doing a good job of that to having to go and rehabilitate in the gym, which struck the interest in, I guess, like the health-related side of things and the fitness side, which is what I went to study. Not a natural public speaker, mate, not a natural in front of crowds, probably more introverted and happy in my own company generally. But on the back end of finishing my degree and having trained a bunch of people, I essentially got the opportunity to go and speak and teach, which is something that terrified me, but something I weirdly started to enjoy, which was, I guess leaning into the things that scare you and build you, and just paying notice to what you love. And then that led to a health club, which became, relatively successful. And along that journey, a lot of people were asking what I was doing, which led to Mantastic. So wherever you would like to start in that, mate, feel free to dig.
Well, look, I'll tell you what, let's make a start by talking about the BMX riding and then getting into TomFit. I mean, look, I know there's so many people out there who are gamers. When we all sort of know the story, you go to work, you come home, you throw your headphones on, you sit in front of the computer or TV, and you're there for hours and hours. It's an addiction like anything else, I suppose. But I mean, look, because I know you from being, obviously, you've spoken about TomFit quite regularly. So let's I suppose pick it up from there. How did you get into running your own PT business? What was involved with that? Because as you say, you've gone from somebody who was, I suppose, naturally introverted into somebody who had to be confident, extroverted, and a leader because a lot of people relied upon you.
Yeah, it's funny, man. Like it's one of those, the dots don't make sense when they go forward. They only make sense when you go back, So to give you the picture of it, I picked up bikes, right? And I loved BMX because it was an independent sport and it was freestyle. So, I started freestyle BMX when I was like 14, 15 maybe. Spent a lot of time at skate parks. Absolutely loved it because I was never one to really play footy or team sports. Just wasn't my thing. It wasn't that I didn't like them. Wasn't my thing. Had a crash like I shared, mate, where I went into the gym. I thought I never wanted to go to the gym. I got sent there for rehab. When I went there, it made a big difference to me. I really loved it, studied it. And then I think, you're always looking for that next thing. What's the milestone? What's the goal? So when I got thrown into speaking and coaching, I had a small client base. around me that, that I was training as I was going through uni, that built after uni. I love training people. I love presenting in front of people. And through a natural evolution, I guess, of just saying yes to things, brother. And I was based on the Gold Coast at the time, and my bosses were moving over to Auckland. There was probably 3, 4, 5 people above me that should have got the opportunity that I was, I guess, given the opportunity to take. They all said no because they had a great life on the Gold Coast. It was sunny, and a lot of times people joke that I caught the plane the wrong way when I went to New Zealand, but it was a huge opportunity for me. Yeah, I got told that one all the time. I also got told that by the Australians that I sound like a Kiwi, and by the Kiwis that I sound like an Australian. So, which is an interesting one. But essentially, mate, I said yes to an opportunity because I thought it would grow me and it would make me better. And I knew if I didn't, I would regret it. Part of that was to go over and lead a college over in Auckland and become their senior presenter. And then the opportunity, because we were training trainers up, was to open my own little PT studio. And initially, that was within the college that, I worked in. So it was kind of like in-house. And then it became, sign a lease and sign a bit of paper, and it became an official business, I guess, where we had to pay the rent. And we had, it was funny, when I used to go over to Auckland before all of this happened, I'd often joke to the guys, like, I could see myself living over here, love hanging out with this crew. An opportunity came into play. And because I'd been over there presenting, when I said I'm thinking about moving over, 3 people reached out and said, we'd love to become your trainers. And the business was sort of started, I knew the opportunity was there, but it was started by accident. And we certainly had no idea what we were doing, mate, when we started. Absolutely zero. And I guess through persistence and time, and me just being intrigued, like a passion project, we ended up building something that was pretty special. So yeah, it's really funny, man, when you look back, like my stuff was never, I want to do this and then I want to do that and then I want to do the next thing. It's like, I've always leaned into what I wanted to do, felt it. And then there's been another opportunity, and TomFit started as a little 100 square meter studio. It started with a team of 3. I completely stuffed up the budget for the business in the beginning. So I spent all the money on equipment, had no money for marketing. We pretty much painted the walls as we got money because I ran out of money really quick because I just spent it all on equipment. And there's so many parts of that journey, mate, where, I didn't know what I was doing. I lent in and I look back and like, there's been a rule for me that I stuff everything up 3 times and then I get it. And an example of that was one of the seminars that we used to run within the business to attract clients before there were Facebook ads, called How to Drink Beer, Eat Chocolate and Still Lose Weight, or How to Drink Wine, Eat Cheese and Keep a Slim Waistline. And a lot of that stuff like petrified me in the beginning. It was terrible. Like if I wasn't presenting, I would have left. But it all came into, it's funny, just failing forwards, mate, and how much that's kind of, I guess, built me into who I am now. And everyone always sees the good parts and the big parts, but in those early days, there was certainly a lot of mistakes, mate. So hope that helps.
Oh, look, as they say, you fail forward, and as you do, you realize what works and what doesn't work. And I guess the sensible thing to do, if you listen to a lot of life coaches and also things that I know that you coach through Mantastic, it is that thing of, always take stock of yourself and review and go, right, well, what's working, what isn't working? Let's do more of what is and let's do less of what's not. And you sort of move forward that way.
Yeah, and as we've spoke about many times one-on-one together, brother, like booking the thing that scares you and doing it and understanding that you might mess parts of it up. It's probably likely that you will because you've never done it before, but it's also unlikely that you'll be worse for that experience because you learn what to do and what not to do. And that's been a huge part of, I guess, what we do now with Mantastic is, I consider myself to have a really good empathy and understanding with people because most of the stuff that I've been through, or in fact, anything that I teach, I've learned the hard way. And by feeling, I know what it's like to win at doing it, but I also know what it's like to not have that feeling. And that's kept me really grounded, mate. So, and I still continue to push myself in that way where, if something's there that will grow you and challenge you and develop you as a person, I'll lean into it. And that's sort of been, pretty much an underlying philosophy of everything that I've done.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me, when you had the opportunity to actually start, your own PT, which became TomFit, what were some of the thoughts that went through your mind? Because it must have been daunting to go, wow, there's all this money involved, and how can I do this? Even though you obviously know your stuff as far as PT and training and so forth. What was the thought process when it came to physically starting your own business?
Yeah, bro, I think that it was probably my lack of thought process that got me into trouble, that started that thought process. So, context, I put myself through uni, riding a ride on street sweeper, cleaning fitness first. I'd been a trainer. I knew what training was about. I'd coached trainers. But there always comes an opportunity where you've got to, walk the walk and back it up. Now, when I first moved to Auckland, because we were running the colleges, I was essentially given free rent in a room that was within the college, meaning that there weren't too many expenses. There was no risk. A couple of my trainers in the early days, they'd finished the college and they'd come in and they didn't really know how to get clients. They didn't know how to build a client base or how to push themselves, or they'd never ran their own business. I'd done it for myself and built my client base, but they'd never been through that. Anyways, in their downtime, because they had to be proactive in meeting people and prospecting, etc., they would loiter at the college. And we had a college which ran as a full-time business. There was meant to be a PT studio. The trainers inside of it, the trainers were meant to be in and out, and be efficient with it. But my trainers would loiter. And man, there was this one situation where I think they were loitering in the studio, training themselves, and they were playing Limp Bizkit. I can't remember which Limp Bizkit CD, but one of them. And anyway, we got a warning from the directors. And then about a week later, I got another warning for music and loitering and this type of thing. And they said, Tommy, you either need to get in line or maybe you should look at getting your own site. And so that was the first big risk I took, was signing a commercial lease as such, because that's, for lack of better words, putting things on the line. Anyway, there was a lease that I found online in New Zealand, like the real estate and the eBay, I guess, of it is called Trade Me. So I went on Trade Me. There was a lease for $28,000 per year, and I just rang up cheekily and offered $18,000 a year for it. Oh, wow. And I thought nothing of it. I thought they'll never get it. And so they said, you're happy to sign here, put this expression of interest in, blah, blah, blah. And I get a call back about 5 days later, and they said, you've got it. And I went, fuck, wow. Because that was my natural thought, because I thought, I've really got to commit here. And it's funny, man, I think in life when you commit to things and you make a decision, as you know, mate, when you book it and you book the flight and you pay for it and make something of you, and then you think, I've got to make this work. And so that was our initial phase. We turned into what was then a proper business, and it was like, well, shit, we better get good at what we're doing, because the buck stops with me here, and we just figured it out on the move. And that was, I described the first couple of years of doing that as like watching a cat run under a roller door that's shutting, like whether that was paying the rent or firefighting a situation, I was just always getting feedback on what I was doing, but I never started with a perfect plan. Certainly didn't start with a plan, like knowing everything that I needed to learn. I learned it on the move. So over the years, mate, there's been lots of things that have ran through my mind. And I guess probably the biggest one that on the topic of like leadership and leading people is when you got a team there, they're looking at you and you're looking for the answers. So you better have them, and you got to stay on top of it. And you got to be sorted with it. So probably for me, mate, it was a really big step up. And it's great you're asking these questions, because not many people have ever asked me this. It was a real big step up, as in like, you can't keep messing around. or you can't be cruisy with things. If you want this outcome and you want this to work, you've got to get better, and you better figure it out quickly. And that's what happened to me. And it's one of the best things that did ever happen to me, because it made me, I thought I was good. Then I then I had to prove it with real world results, and practicing my skills and leading people and just getting better, mate, which, like I said, was all done on the move.
Mm. I guess it comes down to what you said before. Like you need to, walk the walk and talk the talk. You can't be a hypocrite. If you're teaching something, you also have to be living that thing, because otherwise, well, you're a fraud in some ways, aren't you?
Yeah, and it's funny, man, like on the topic of an identity crisis, what happened to me, right? Like I grew up in skate parks wearing a Metallica t-shirt, listening to metal music, riding bikes, always having a fun time. I, was always, I'm from a country town. Like we got 6 pubs in a matter of streets. Everyone knows everyone's name. And I started with that. And what's funny is, like, I started as Tommy, being quite relaxed, not as structured, just having a fun time, and realizing I needed a lot of structure and I needed to step up. And ironically, I guess probably 5 to 6 years into that journey, when things were going really well, I probably became a little bit too robotic and a little bit too structured. And rather than having like a glass wall where it's like, well, you're having a chat to your mate JNewtz, I was actually a harder person to talk to, because I'd become a bit too serious and encapsulated in it. And now it's funny, because I probably like who I am the most and my own best mate as a person now, with an integration of those two. So it's funny, getting serious in the beginning was something that really, really helped me. And then once I went too serious, which just came from pressure and stress and all the things I was managing, actually just getting back to who I was the thing that really took it to the next level. So it's really, really funny how the journey goes.
I guess what I'm really picking up on there is you need to be your genuine self at the same time as taking something seriously as you're building it. But once you've got it sort of going as a well-oiled machine, you can relax into it. You're still obviously working in the business, but you can bring your personality, you can bring the fun back. You don't need to adopt the whole, oh, this is corporate, I must be serious. And it's very similar to what I was talking with Paulie Freeman about, where he adopted, a corporate position. And he's like, well, you need to grow up now. You have to act, act the way that this industry wants you to. You can't be Paul anymore. You have to be Paul, because that's professional. But then the more you get into it, the more comfortable you go, no, I can be professional, but I can still be me.
And when I did that, mate, people started to go, what change have you made? And like, it's really cool to start hanging out with you. And, I vividly remember one of my trainers, Dane, we're sitting down at a bar called Max Bar in Takapuna. And this is probably 5 years on from that story that I was just telling you. And he said to me, pardon the language, but he goes, fuck man, it's cool to hang out with you. And I said, what do you mean, Danger? And he goes, oh, well, you were a bit of a dick before. I didn't really like hanging out with you that much, mate. I just couldn't relate to you. And it's funny, because what we did in that phase is what made the business work. But what I lost in that phase was who Tommy was and all the stuff that I love to do. And then combining those two together to be able to get the result and be able to lead and stand in front of people, but authentically be me and show people who I am. It's been 10 times the superpower of being someone who's unrelatable, and, like not personable. So yeah, it's really interesting, that journey, mate.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of journeys, and obviously we're talking about TomFit and all the PT stuff. Now, I know through many conversations with you that you also have done bodybuilding competitions. Now, did that sort of start before TomFit? Was that during TomFit? Was that after TomFit? How did that whole thing come about, and what are sort of the thought processes that go behind a decision to get into that kind of sport?
Yeah, it's a great question, mate. So there was a stage in TomFit where the early days in 2010, we're a little studio in Auckland, New Zealand, and I really was pushing my trainers to practice what they preach. And I thought, I better do that. And then we had a few people coming in, and they actually asked about doing one, like doing a show and getting in tip-top shape. My background was in health science. I had a degree in it, so the theory was there. But like all thing, it was theory on an opinion. So I've made myself a pact. I'm not sure if I would commit to this same thing again. That I was going to do 3 bodybuilding comps and 3 marathons back to back. So one a year. We'd do the bodybuilding comp in May, and then we'd do the Melbourne Marathon in October. And I did that in 2010, 2011, and 2012. And that in and of itself was, such an interesting learning curve, as you can imagine.
It would have been a very, I think it's one of those things where you go, oh yeah, I'll commit to this, but I'm sure that leaning into it was anything but easy. I mean, bodybuilding competitions and marathons, every year, 3 years back to back. I mean, what kind of process do you have to go through to get your body into that kind of shape, and then also mentally stay in that headspace to not just achieve it, but want to achieve it?
Yeah, that's a great question, mate. They're 2 very separate sports too, because bodybuilding's really funny. At least my experience with it was, right? Bodybuilding's not who I am as a person. I enjoyed the process of learning about and applying particularly like nutrition and learning how to eat to get in great shape, training, committing to a plan and seeing it through. But on the day, I always remember at the first bodybuilding show, 2 things. Number one, 3 things. Number one, I looked like I was in great shape. I was super thin, and by the time you put the dirty dream tan on, I looked like I'd escaped from a prison or something. But standing up on stage, you look awesome. I looked awesome, but I felt like shit. I had a big headache. I was dehydrated. I had no energy because you've been dieting to stand up there for one Kodak moment, for a bunch of people to evaluate you. And then I remember like being out in the back with the people, and there was one guy and his girlfriend, she's a pretty hot chick. She's saying to her partner, like, babe, you look amazing. And he basically like, shut up, I've got to stand up in a minute. Like, he was just not a happy person. I remember seeing that and being like, this isn't my crowd. I don't really belong here. And then anyway, got up on stage. You'll laugh, mate. Again, lots of stuff I haven't shared, but actually one routine of the night to a dance routine so you can leave your hat on, which was hilarious. Because most people would just play like metal music, and I end up doing this like random strip routine. And at one routine of the night, and the crowd was pumping. It was so funny, and won a bottle of wine.
I will never look at you the same way ever again.
yeah, it's on my Instagram there somewhere, mate. It was quite funny. And for someone who dances like a robot, I was able to like memorize it so well that anyway, somehow it came in. But the bodybuilding side was funny, mate, because you diet really hard, and you've heard me talk about this in Mantastic. I picked a way that wasn't necessarily the Tommy way of doing things, and I'm always big on your way, communicate the JNewtz way, eat and exercise the JNewtz way or the Tommy way. Well, the way I picked was the bodybuilder way initially. And so I experienced post-competition, going the way I got to where I wanted to be wasn't sustainable. And then post-competition, I went and ate everything under the sun. And then 6 weeks later, I looked like I'd never done one. And I went, well, this isn't good. So the reiteration between bodybuilding comp number 1 and 2 were really different. And by number 3, what I really realized is I liked being about 6 weeks out from a bodybuilding competition where I felt good, I was strong, I was eating the stuff that I love, and I had a social life. But it was a box that was ticked. I can see why some people would want to tick it if you haven't been there. For me personally now, I'd rather be a few months out in pretty good nick, but not committing to doing that. Or, but I look back, at parts of my confidence and as I developed myself, that was a box that had to be ticked. To do that, because there was probably once a stage for me when, maybe it was more like the internal self-worth or the being your own best mate wasn't there, and the part, and I'm sure that, if you interview anyone who's been through this, the part that I guess was lacking was made up for with muscles. And so I went through that process and learned, and, it was a learning curve. It was an experience. By the time I did the third one, I went, I don't think I ever really need to do this again, because the more important acknowledgement is from myself. I did 3. I did 1 the last one I did, Benny, who's my mate who passed from cancer, and we did it dressed as in a Chewbacca and a Darth Vader mask, which was the funniest one of all time. Which shows how lighthearted we took the third one. I'm not even sure if we would have got invited back after that, but that was good fun. The marathons, mate, were something completely different, where it's not so much aesthetic, but you're testing your willpower, because depending on who you are, and I'm definitely not built for running, you have to run 42.2 Ks. And, for me, at least, I found that for me, the marathon was a 30K warm up and light jog, followed by 12.2 kilometers of holy shit, this is full on. And that was the case 3 years in a row. But I actually really enjoyed the marathons. I found them a better experience because of the people and the level of positivity, and you're doing this with a group and it's exciting. I enjoyed it more than the bodybuilding as an experience, but that's just me. I look better when I did the bodybuilding. But the actual journey of the marathon taught me so much more, that when you feel like giving up, just, make it that extra kilometer and do that extra thing. And that definitely gave me a lot of discipline and willpower that I use to this day. So yeah, that was a big commitment, mate. I'm not sure that I would commit to doing that again for 1 year, let alone 3, because I've ticked that box. But they both taught me interesting and valuable things. And they both helped sort of, I guess, shape the philosophy of who I am now as a person as well. So, both big commitments, mate. I probably don't belong in either world. I'm glad that I bucket list ticked them both, and enough to have experience to be able to help others. Lots of lessons from particularly the marathon, mate. Like, that is just, they're a beast. And now there's people doing a lot more crazier stuff than marathons. But yeah, just all part of shaping who I am now and putting a tick in the box, mate, as I guess is the case in a lot of people's journeys, but in a different way.
The thing that I'm really picking up on there between the bodybuilding and the marathon is bodybuilding seems to be something that's a very more of a solo personal thing, where it's like, it's you're on this journey, it's your commitment, you're not doing it as part of a team, it's you doing it for you. Whereas a marathon, as you say, there's a camaraderie of all the runners, even though obviously some people are there to win. There's that group mentality of we're here for each other as such, whereas bodybuilding, it's very much, well, you're on your own.
Yeah, and on the day of the show, like what I found, because technically everyone looks great, and in my opinion, if you made it to that day and you're going to stand up on stage and that was the thing that you wanted to do, you're already a champion. But I found that probably more, at least in the scene that I was in at the time, more cliquey and less friendly on the day. I guess you got a lot of starved, hungry, grumpy people. Whereas the marathon, I found very much a supportive culture. The day itself was a real highlight, and you look at the processes leading in, and with the bodybuilding, you got people not who've starved themselves, but technically they've been dieting for a long time to get there. And then, so a bodybuilding comp is more like chess, where it's about your moves, and should you, it's more calculated, particularly with your food. Whereas a marathon is purely performance related, where if you haven't done the work and your bones aren't conditioned to hit the road because you haven't done the long distance, that'll show on the day. But personally, I thoroughly enjoyed the marathons because they taught me a lot about grit and willpower. And I mean, when you're 25, 26 and you see someone who's 65 with like little pot belly zoom past you, who's a veteran marathon runner, it's and he's, come on, mate, like, you can finish. I found that culture really supportive and really liked it. And so again, that's just me. I haven't been in either of them for a decade, but the marathon was definitely a and the bodybuilding comp, like, I think a lot of people who do them now have a coach. I think a lot of people who do them now have a commitment. Like they've made a commitment to themselves. I think a lot of people who do them now, again, I think, just my opinion, do it to prove something to themselves. And for some people, in terms of identity, that becomes their identity. Like, that's who I am. I'm a bodybuilder. And I guess if it's the thing you're passionate about, that's great. For me, I was like, well, I ticked that box, I did it. But doing it again, like, what would be the point?
Yeah, exactly. I suppose after a while, if you feel that, well, I've come to the end of the road of whatever it might be, then it's time to just go, well, I enjoyed that and move on. And I think that actually brings me perfectly to my next question, which is, when did you feel it was the end of the road for TomFit? Because I know that you don't run that business now. That's come and gone. What was the transition out of that?
Yeah, so a few things. You're a great question asker, brother, firstly.
Thank you.
A few things, mate. So little baby TomFit grew and we became a full commercial health club. And so we went from a team of, a little 100 square meter studio to many hundreds of square meters, and I think a team of 26 when I moved on. I essentially, did an amazing apprenticeship with the colleges that I was in. It wasn't an apprenticeship as such, but I always call it my apprenticeship because it taught me so much about marketing and sales and speaking. And I was doing TomFit along the side, and I came to the point where I was like, I got to pick one. I partnered up with one of my good mates to launch the proper TomFit Health Club. And that was the better part of my journey from 2014, 15, 16, 17. Like, I'd be out at a bar and someone would shout out to me, TomFit. And it was great because I, knew a lot of people in Auckland, and it was such a fun journey, like a big family. Along that journey, my good mate Benny Butler and I started Mantastic because he was based in Hope Island, which is in Queensland. I was based in Auckland, and we both had that background of being trainers, training people, watching them improve their health. But we always had so many people that, and particularly guys, that we would reach out, that would reach out to us, and whether it was relationship questions or money questions or, man brand questions or just questions about life, it was always the case that we'd have people reaching out who had goals and kind of wanted to achieve them and were looking for a bit of a hand outside of fitness. So we made a commitment pretty much after TomFit started that we're going to write a program called Mantastic, and the one that you've known to come to life. Mm-hmm. It was never going to be a coaching program. It was always going to be digital products. And we spent 2 years writing it. And what started out as what was meant to be a 70-page book and info product turned into over 1,000 pages and a whole curriculum and of what we thought that, all the key areas that it took to be a Mantastic guy, to live a Mantastic life. So Ben and I put that together in 2014 and 15 as I was building TomFit. Now, in 2016, 2015, sort of in the middle of that, Benny, who was my close mate, close mate, like a big brother, really, like a big brother, someone that's, give or take 10 years older, but just best dude ever. We used to have so much fun together. We would literally sit there for hours at night in and around building our businesses before we had Mantastic, playing NBA on the PlayStation, and I was the tanned Wookiee and he was Mr. Schnitzel, and we'd play a whole season, and it wasn't for the game, it was for the chat. Anyway, rewind, Benny had testicular cancer, I think in 2008, and so he'd had one of the two team members removed and was down to one, was all good, and eventually cancer ended up reforming, but this time up in his lungs, which came when he'd had a CT scan and had a bit of a health check. And so we're in this position where in 2015, I'd found out Ben had got crook. From 2015 to 2016, we're in and out of the oncology ward in Southport, and I'm learning when you're in your 20s, you think that you can eat concrete and drink as much rum as you want, and that your parents will be here forever, and all of these types of things. And I was over and seeing Benny more or less every month, and you go in and out of this oncology ward, and you're like, "Fuck, man! This is life is precious." And I always remained optimistic. I didn't think anything would happen. I thought Benny was all on track for everything. His health certainly diminished, so he went from being a pretty muscular dude down to kind of looking like a triathlete by the end, very, very, very lean. And then I went away for my 30th, right, which was in 2016. And I hadn't heard from Ben. We used to text every day. And by this point, TomFit had become, kind of, I guess, what I'd initially set it out to be.
Mm-hmm.
And TomFit was humming along. It was pretty much took a majority of my time. We'd just finished writing Mantastic. I got back from Hawaii for my birthday. Had a quick chat to Benny. He didn't say too much. Was in good spirits. He was just asking questions about me, but he was asking questions that he'd never really asked before that were really deep. Like he's asking, like, so did you get engaged on the trip? Like, he hit some like very direct and real, not banter questions. And I thought that's super interesting. Anyway, I always hang out the phone call, say, love you, brother. And we arranged to chat in a couple of days. Ben, it was a Saturday. I tried to call Ben 4 times, and then I woke up on the Sunday, man, feeling this really eerie feeling. And I was like, I don't know what this is. I decided to drive out to TomFit. I lived in the city. It was like 20 minutes away on the North Shore. And I sat there and I trained on like something feels like really intuitive, real weird thing. And anyway, I sat there and then I got a phone call from Ben's brother, whose name's Brett, and it was an interesting one because Brett said to me, and if Brett listens to this, I like to direct Brett to this as a resource. He said Benny's not here anymore. Like Benny passed away last night. Would you come to the funeral? Would you speak? And I'm like, of course. And so you go from having building a business, which seems important, co-writing this program with big goals, and things that we wanted to do together. And then all of a sudden you're giving a speech at your best mate's funeral with another one of my best mates, G. And it was an open cast funeral. So Benny's in a box there and you're like, far out, that hit heavy. That's the hardest, to date still, the hardest public speaking that I've ever done. And credit to him because he had a funeral where there's just people out the door everywhere. Anyway, mate, after that, I went back to my, what was meant to be like a successful business, and I felt like something was missing. And TomFit was getting busy. It continued to get busier. I had a few admin things to sort with Mantastic and, getting stuff sorted, figuring out what I was going to do. And eventually, to be fair, I pretty much marinated on that for 6 months. We then went to, me and my other good mate, Radek, and G actually, went to Miami for a holiday in the States. I remember sitting there on the bench, and it was a catalyst of events. Like I'd recently become single. I was in New Zealand. I was away from family. And somewhere deep down, mate, I felt this, I wouldn't say obligation, because I guess my interpretation of obligation is something that you have to do whether you want to do it or not. I felt like I made Benny a promise I was going to take Mantastic to the world, and yet my actions were 6 days a week, most moments that I was awake, working in TomFit with beautiful people, like amazing people who were family. Obviously it was location dependent, being Auckland, but I felt like I was meant to be doing more. And so I realized that I couldn't do both. Or if I did both, one was going to do better than the other, or it was going to be 50% towards each. And so I guess being overseas and then a culmination of life events, as I'm sure the people who are listening will relate to, where that make you see the world differently. I've loved TomFit. It's been my life. It's been pretty much my identity for the better part of 8 years. But if I'm to do this, I can't do that. Meaning, like, if I'm to do Mantastic, I can't do TomFit. And that happened in March of 2017. And then by November the 7th of 2017, I wasn't the owner of TomFit anymore, which was, it was funny, man, because it was one of the most weirdest feelings ever, because everything that I did was so ingrained in me that, I built this thing from the ground up, and it became a big and a special place. And even more importantly than the actual place was the people who were like family. And I remember I went on a holiday to Fiji after, and it's like, you know, I'd sold up, I'd had some money in the bank, etc. I'm like, but man, this feels so weird, and it's so different because it's who I was for such a long period of my life, and then end up coming back to Australia, mate, to get going. Well, the true story is I came back to Australia, then went and spent some time in Canada, Mexico, the US, because Mantastic was originally going to be an app. And it wasn't really, Mantastic never took off until about a year later when I went, no, I'm actually going to go run a seminar back in Auckland for Mantastic, and that's how this whole seminar thing took off. So, yeah, TomFit the sale of it came from realizing I couldn't do two things and I wanted to do one more than the other, even though I loved one a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like there's two things I'm picking up on here, just through everything you just said. Number one is it's interesting how the death of your best friend ultimately led to put this into context, I suppose, the death of TomFit from your involvement as such. I find that interesting. But then, as you say, like, you know, going from Auckland to the States, then to Australia, then to Canada, then to Mexico, while you're sort of getting Mantastic up off the ground and working out how it's going to work and how you're going to put this out to the world. What I'm really picking up on there is the constant moving around the globe. It was sort of a form of an identity crisis in itself, because it was, I guess it was that whole thing of, well, what do I do and where do I base myself from? To me, it sounds like a period of confusion before you really got into the groove of things.
Yeah, you're right, bro. It was I realized I'd worked for 10 years without really taking a big break. A lot of what I was known for was TomFit, you know, and you have that, I guess, edification from other people. And then, you know, you're so close to so many people, you know, and anyone would know this that have moved a city or, you know, had a change of friendship circles or etc., where it went from being me and a big crew to just Tommy. And it wasn't Tommy from TomFit, it was Tommy from Mantastic. But technically, there wasn't Mantastic yet, you know? So very, very different to now, mate. And there was a period of time where, you know, initially when you go through something like that, I think probably what I lost, if you're to look at, and I like as in the language of identity crisis, was I had such a strong purpose for a long time in what I was doing. I had a reason to wake up every day. I was building something I was really passionate about. And then I had to figure out a new way and to get this new thing going. And so, yeah, it was different, mate, because it was just Tommy. Initially, I thought I was going to build like an education-based app, being Mantastic. The better part of that year, I was, you know, a combination of Mexico, San Diego, LA, San Francisco, Seattle. I spent, I think, 4 months in Vancouver doing a bit of Tommy stuff. And then it's, you know, it was really funny. Like everything happens slow, then it happens fast. We ran one event in Auckland. I invited 61 people I knew, 41 people showed up, 7 people jumped on board Mantastic. And back from there, I felt like I was back on track again. But in the meantime, yeah, you're right, mate. It was sort of like, and it was a part of it was that in between phase, right? Where you're known for this, you've done that, you experience success in something, and then you're starting from scratch, doing something different. And the in between part, you're trying to figure that out. And I can relate to, like, we have a lot of guys who have come into Mantastic over the years who've, you know, they might have been in a relationship for a long time, and then, you know, over the years they've stopped doing all of the things that they love, and they've, you know, developed an identity around being a particular partner or, you know, the life that they're living, and then that gets taken away, and it's like, well, shit, what do I do now? So it was a good thing for me ultimately, although it was a hard thing to go through.
Of course. Well, I mean, any period of great change is never an easy thing to ride through, is it?
No, absolutely not, mate. And you don't, especially when you're in the front seat of the F1 car, you don't really know it. But I guess from a Mantastic point of view, it was really good for me because it really allowed me to proactively think, well, who do I want to be? What do I want to do now? And a question that I think a lot of people don't ask is like, how do I want to be spending my time? But yeah, there was definitely a year there, mate, that was like, it was an interesting year and a really different year. And, in some ways you're off the back of one success, but then you're at the bottom of another place. And it's interesting, obviously, like all of the mental side of that, the where you lean in, where you spend your time side of that. But I'm so glad it happened to me.
Of course, yeah. So tell me, now that we're talking about Mantastic, what's the ethos? What is the main reason for Mantastic? I mean, look, I obviously know because I'm a part of the program. I'm very happy to be a part of the program for several years now. But for anybody who's listening who's never heard of Mantastic, what is the program? What is the ethos behind everything?
Yeah, good question. It's so for those of you who haven't heard of Mantastic before, essentially Mantastic, so guys only, definitely a place for guys to rally behind and support each other, and essentially around goals. So our whole thing is building a successful life, whatever that means to you, looking at goals across your business career, your financials, your health, your happiness, just life in general, picking the things that you wanted to commit to. Our whole thing's, in 12-month cycle, sort of chasing down 5 years worth of growth and ticking off what's important and using our structure and systems to do that. And really a strong culture of community and picking things that challenge you to that you want to achieve and be held accountable to, and then working through challenges together to make sure that you keep going, essentially. And so it's a great question, mate, because that whole culture and ethos is pretty much, if you go back to that year that I spent in Mantastic language, man solo, now what powers me are the stories that come out of the community and the changes that are made and the friendships that are made. So essentially it's the whole program based around picking the goals or the areas that you feel you want to level up in, do better in, reach milestones in, setting game plans, creating accountability around them, and a whole, as you're aware, JNewtz, it's a really strong culture of support and having each other's back.
I think that is definitely one of the biggest things to get out of Mantastic, whether you choose to sort of really focus on business goals or financial goals or whatever it is you're focusing on. The one big thing I've got out of Mantastic for the past 3 or 4 years is really not just the sense of community, but that incredible support from people that you've either never met before or that you maybe have met once or twice online or physically if you're in the same city or thereabouts. But the fact that there are people out there who support you, genuinely support you, and they they want to see the best of you. And if you've got an issue, they're happy to be there for you. They'll share what they've gone through themselves. Because let's face it, typically men in society, they don't talk about emotions. They don't talk about, the softer side of life and so forth. They don't, it's always, manly men, very butch and masculine and focusing on the intellectual side of things rather than the emotional side. And the good thing with Mantastic is you've created a space, take away all the goal setting out of it. You've created an environment where men can feel safe to be vulnerable to other men and offer support and in turn get support back. And it's also very sad that outside of that in the real world, that culture doesn't exist in society from a main point of view. But as you say, Mantastic offers this amazing support to so many men around the world. And it's something that it's been missing for a long time. And I think that's one of the greatest values, irrespective of goals.
100%, mate. And it's a big thing. Like, I think that probably the other part that I'd add based off what we just spoke about is what we have is not a culture of ego, as in you drive this car or you wear this watch or you've achieved this accolade. In fact, it's the far opposite, in terms of reality is that for anything that you pursue that has meaning to you, there's going to be challenges that you face, and it's inevitable. Like, it's not if shit will happen, it's just what shit will happen.
Yeah. And
so when shit happens, the people you have around you are key, and having someone to talk to going, hey, JNewtz, I've got this challenge, brother. And, sometimes JNewtz is an ear. Sometimes JNewtz is there to give from his experience. Sometimes JNewtz can just give you his opinion. But having people in your life that, that you can chat things out with as opposed to hold them in, particularly guys like, who generally have a challenge and become a fire starer, as in like go and sit in front of the fire and try and figure it out, like stare at the fire. And that's a big thing for everyone. And for anyone listening, not saying that it necessarily has to be Mantastic, but if you're looking for, for lack of better words, like a tribe of people who are wanting to go in the direction that you're going, and you've got things that you want to do, and you're heading a direction, well, if you get around a group of people who are doing stuff, inevitably they'll face similar challenges, and the conversations are really valuable and quality conversations. And it doesn't matter whether you join, Mantastic, saying it's the only one, but doing something and getting around people, like finding your people, is a huge part of what makes life a whole heap better. And it really is a superpower as to going at it alone. And I guess for me, the Mantastic side of what I've really tried to, create is create what I didn't have the whole time, in the sense of, didn't always have the support, didn't always have the community, didn't always have, sometimes people that are a bit further ahead, sometimes people that are on the journey, didn't have that. And the value that comes in that for all of our members, and me included, is enormous. And I couldn't advocate strongly enough for whoever's listening to find that, but in the way that whatever that is for them, not saying it's solely Mantastic.
Yeah, of course. It has to resonate with you. Now, when it comes to Mantastic in the program, you touched upon this briefly. You've got what you call RILAB, which is Run Your Life as a Business. A part of that is what you call sprints, which I suppose sort of comes from like the TomFit days of reps and so forth. Just give me a brief rundown of the RILAB ethos and the sprint system.
Yeah, so our whole, spin on things is build a life you love, using the same principles that make a business successful. So you're the CEO of your life. That's where it comes in, all the goals that you have, the person that you want to be, becoming your own best mate, liking who you see in the mirror, being able to, just, you're the boss. You get to make the decisions, taking ownership for that. And then there's key departments. So CFO is money, HR, so CFO, Chief Financial Officer, HR, Human Resources is imagining your life as a board table and getting the right people around you, whether that's, accountants or lawyers or single mates or people that you go play tennis with, whatever. So that's Human Resources. Customer Service is looking after the people that you love. So we use a simple traffic light system. Green means that all things are good. Orange means a warning. Red means that things have come to a stop, like the relationship stops. So auditing relationships. Product development and branding is looking at the skills that you need to learn. Like, you are a product. Don't bring the 2014 version of you into 2024 and expect a better life. Like, you got to do the product development, get better, upskill. For me, big areas of upskill over the years have been speaking and marketing and sales. Mm-hmm. Product development and branding being the man brand, like the visual side, the personal brand you want to create. There's SOC, which we call Shirts Off Club, which is the physique side of things. R&R, which is essentially the, managing stress and the wellness side. And marketing and sales, which is all of the communication stuff. And so the idea is you're the CEO, you manage all these key departments. You have probably goals in some or all of the departments. The way that we split the year up is, obviously there's 12 months in the year, which everyone would know. We break the year into sprints, which are 8-week cycles. So inside of every 8 weeks, you have what are called KFAs, so key focus areas, which are essentially milestones or targets that you want to hit. We found 8 weeks to be such a great time frame because it goes quick, but it's also long enough to challenge you, as opposed to 90 days, which sometimes feels like you're dragging stuff out a little bit too long. So we break the year into 6 8-week sprints, so with a week off in the middle and 3 weeks off at the end of the year to get you 52 weeks. And probably one of the biggest things in terms of accountability and camaraderie, sure, for the areas that I mentioned, the systems have been amazing to help people get great results, but then taking that and putting into a practical sense where everyone has 1 to 3 KFAs per sprint or key focus areas that they're working on, and targets with an 8-week sort of milestone attached to them. And then you can either attach a reward or a consequence, depending on what motivates you better. As in, if you complete this, you can reward yourself with 3-day weekend or the pair of headphones that you want or whatever it might be. But that's been a real big key to our structure and particularly our community. You know, I look at the support, the 8-week sprints have probably been the single best thing that's, you know, ever been implemented in a live format for us in creating accountability and talking around it. Because as you know, JNewtz, like if you do a mid-sprint check-in or a KFA's check-in in the sense of, you know, like as a group, a mid-sprint check-in in week 5 of that, just hearing what other people are doing, hearing what other people are up to realigns you and keeps you on track. So
really
that's probably been the
yeah.
single great, that's the single greatest thing I think we've done.
The thing that I actually really like about the sprints, as you say, like you break them down into 8-week cycles and so forth. And as you even say, like, you know, focus on between 1 and 3 things to achieve within that particular period. It doesn't need to be, you know, 1, but you shouldn't do anything more than 3 because otherwise it becomes unmanageable. And I remember coming back from Melbourne, doing the comedy festival there where I caught up with you and all the Mantastic boys at the show. Flying back, I was thinking, you know, I've just done this wonderful show, Identity Crisis. I've had this incredible connection with the audience to the point where I didn't expect the emotional connection from the show. I didn't expect that. And flying back here, I was thinking to myself, how do I carry that on? And there's a realization of, well, no one in the UK really still knows who JNewtz is as a comedian and so forth. I haven't done, you know, the big festivals over here. I can't put on a solo one-person show because no one knows about it. No one knows about me. And I thought, how do I continue this? Because I know I've got something interesting here. And by the time the next sprint came around, which actually we're still currently in, as you know, the idea of, well, I could do a podcast and I could continue the theme around identity because I realized that it isn't just something that is limited to a show about me. Having spoken to so many people at the end of that show, it inspired me to do something which back then I didn't even think it wasn't even a thought in my mind. And doing these sprints, it's kind of interesting because when you start focusing on something, you go, right, well, that's what I'm working on. And then it just sort of becomes a part of what you do and you've achieved something. So for anybody listening at the moment, I mean, what are we? Are we sprint 3 still or are we sprint 4 at the moment?
Sprint 3 of 2024.
Right. So we're coming toward the tail end of sprint 3. And to know from my own point of view that I've had the idea for the podcast. I've gone in there and I've launched everything. I've done the artwork. I've done by this conversation that you and me are having now. I think you're my 13th interview or thereabouts, which ironically has already given me 3 months worth of content. The podcast has been launched for several weeks. I launched it at the end of May 2024, and it's great because at the end of this sprint, I can look back and go, well, within an 8-week period, look at everything I've achieved. And I think that by the end of the sprint, I'll probably have 4 or 5 months of content, and I'll have more people lined up, and I'm already seeing the benefits from an audience point of view of this podcast only after just a few episodes that are currently launched out there. So, the sprint system really, really works. It creates an amazing focus. And once you've achieved something, like with this, for example, it's something that's just going to happen month after month after month. But then other sprints, you can go, right, I just want to build a website. And within that 8-week period, you build the website and you go, right, well, that's that goal ticked off. And focusing on it and bringing it into such a narrow time frame is such a good thing. And as you said a little earlier before, having 5 years worth of growth in a 12-month period, or having 3 to 5 years of growth in a 12-month period, when you look back on it, if you really commit to it and you're just doing one goal or maybe 2 goals every 8 weeks, it is amazing to look back and go, wow, look at everything I've done in such a short period of time. And just talking now, as I said, I think you're my 12th or 13th interview within 2 or 3 weeks. And to know that I've got 4 months worth of content in 2 or 3 weeks, halfway through a sprint, you go, wow. And I know for a fact that I wouldn't have that mentality and I wouldn't have that kind of drive as such without being a part of Mantastic and learning the sprint system and having the team there to go, let's check in with everyone, and how's everyone going with their sprints. And as you said before, like, people, they're there for each other. They celebrate the milestones, they celebrate the wins, no matter how big or small, and it spurs you on. It really is. And it's an amazing thing that you've created. And I definitely agree. It is the absolute strength in the Mantastic program.
Yeah, it's definitely I love hearing that, mate. It's so good to hear that as a structure as well. And it's amazing to think this is episode 13, off the back end of being at the comedy show with you in Melbourne not that long ago, and which is so cool. And, Yeah, so cool. It's definitely like I guess, I always love that saying, like, you don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. We've got lots of systems, but if we're to sum up the biggest one, we break up the year into 6 8-week cycles. We pick milestones. And the beautiful part about 8 weeks is it goes slow and it goes fast, but you can do a lot in it. And for anyone who's listening, who's maybe thinking about getting started on something, my advice would be, if you don't know where to start, you pick a relevant milestone inside of 8 weeks and start your own sprint. And you'll really surprise yourself because, again, momentum is such a fierce thing, like all of a sudden that 13 becomes 20, becomes 40, it becomes 100 podcasts. And it's like, well, how did you do that, JNewtz? And it's like, well, I got started, like which is what it comes down to. Like everything that was big was once small. So yeah, man, it's definitely, if I was to attribute like the success that we've seen in our community, and we've got some great stories across lots of different things, it would essentially come down to a sprint structure, and lots of support and community. There's lots of other things I'd add, but that'd be the top two.
Absolutely. So Tommy, I mean, you've created this incredible program. You've got people all over the world who are succeeding and who are in a better headspace, and it can all be attributed to you and Benny and what you've created and what you implemented all those years ago. As far as Tommy's growth and Tommy's happiness and mental state, how have you grown through this journey of Mantastic so far?
That's a great question, JNewtz. I've never been asked that. I guess there's a saying, and it says, like, in the coaching space, it's like, the better you are, the better the coach you need. Mm-hmm. And there's also one that I would make up, and it's like, the better your clients and community get, the better you need to be. And so, as you know, mate, but the people who are listening may not know, I travel a lot and I speak a lot, and a lot of the front end of Mantastic is live seminars or live webinars as such, and that's where we share the message, and that's how sort of people enter and get involved in our world predominantly. And so the one promise I made myself as I was doing this is that I am not going to be full of shit. Like, I'm never going to stand up there and say something I don't do. And I made myself that promise at the beginning because I said, if I do that, I'll stop doing it. And so how have I got better? Ironically, I think that I'm my number one client, because when you teach stuff, you really learn it. And it's, across topics like customer service with parents and being a big brother, it's helped me get better. In business, with money, with relationships, like every single part of my life has got better since doing Mantastic. And I'd built, to a degree, some success before I did it. And so I guess the probably the biggest challenge for me, JNewtz, is to do that and be in line with it. And that's a promise that I made myself, is that, like, for anyone who's been to my boardrooms, you'll know that the stories aren't the same. Like, the customer service will always be customer service, but the stories change and evolve based on what I've been doing in my life. So it's the system that I live by, and that's probably been my biggest lesson, because for anyone who's doing anything, like, the ultimate integrity is believing in what you do. I think if you believe in what you're doing and what you want to share it, that makes you a messenger that is very, very hard to compete with, like, because you're living it, you're the example of it. So in terms of growing me, a lot of my growth, like, have I learned stuff, like, and read more books and done more studies since starting Mantastic? Yes. But a lot of it has been me getting better to lead people, and that's ironically made me better. And that's where most of my growth has come from. And like I was saying before, the real fuel for it comes from the wins from the community and watching people do things, and watching people in a position where you once were, where you knew you had the fear to, pull the trigger and have a crack at what it was you wanted to do, but you did it, and then helping others. So, and then obviously that holds you accountable to doing it. I guess the real art in terms of Tommy's headspace and what I've learned is because I would describe myself as a extroverted introvert, meaning I can turn it on when I need to, but I love isolation. Like, you trace that back, man. I used to train in the gym alone. I rode BMX because it wasn't a team sport, even though I had lots of friends. but I didn't want to play AFL. Like, it didn't interest me. I always did my own thing. And so one of the things I learned about myself is, and one of the things that can be dangerous when you're doing what I'm doing, is you can be so invested in what everyone else is doing that you just need to, and that's where the practice what you preach comes in. You really need to make sure you look after yourself along the way. So as you know, mate, we spend a lot of time on values. And a big part for me has just been learning how to structure my life as well as I'm doing it, making sure that I don't burn out, making sure that I still do the things that are important to me, that I've got my downtime, because you can't give what you don't have. And over the course of the journey, there's definitely been times where I've redlined a little bit more, as in I've pushed my battery. And then I've noticed it's like, come on, Tommy, you've got to, you literally have to practice what you preach here. And so that's been a really big lesson for me, mate. And in terms of mental headspace, like, I have a list of things that I do that make me happy, and love getting my 10,000 steps and walking. I love riding bikes. I love time at the beach. I love, doing road trips. I love reading and learning. We've all got things that we love to do. I find the only time my headspace goes off is when I'm not filling my own bucket up. And an example of that, man, is like, I got back into mountain biking in COVID. I had a pretty good crash on my mountain bike.
Yeah.
I snapped my radius. Snapping your radius and trying to get physio in COVID in Victoria is definitely not a fun combination of things. And that's one time where I went, well, okay, don't have the outlets I used to have, so I better find some real quick. So I only find, man, my mindset goes off when I stop doing the things that make it great. And when I trace it back, and like, if I audit myself, it's like, yeah, well, what I'm doing with my time or my environment or whatever, my mindset's off because I've put myself in this place, or I've stopped doing that. But provided I create the space and time to do the things that are important to me, I've got heaps to give. If I don't do that, it's absolutely 100% the other way, bro.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that for sure. I must say, like, what you've really done, like, if you speak to any life coach or business coach or thereabouts, they basically say that, the most successful people in the world, they're successful because they have done something, created something which is a benefit to help other people, whether that be, the iPhone or the refrigerator or the car, and essentially with Mantastic, what you and Benny have created is something that helps so many people, and I mean, and every single year I see Mantastic, go from strength to strength. And it really is something where, the value of Mantastic is in the community and seeing the change of people coming into it. And then after a year, how they are in 2 years and 3 years and so forth. You've really created something here, which in some ways, while you're running it as a business, it's so selfless because the core is to improve somebody else's life.
Yeah, man. And that's the fuel for it too. Because the minute that you stop being rewarded from that, it's like, like the minute that you're not about it, like for me, it's the stories, we're particular about who we work with, who I sit down with. I go, it's people, as you know, man, from the back of the comedy show, it's people you want to spend time with, you want to have there. But we've found a great system that works created a great system that works for guys. I think the strength of our community is that whole ethos of RyLab and people leaning into that has been amazing. So we're trained in a common system, but then with the core of support of helping each other. And yeah, it's great, mate. It's like, and that's probably, if I went back to, that time that I spent in the US and Canada, and if you were to ask yourself, like, I've done this, I'm a pretty introspective person, wherever anything's been off, I've written down, well, what's missing, like what's missing right now that I feel like I'm wanting. And it was probably that as a feeling, mate. So, and that's why it was always created in the first place was, at the end of the day to help other people. And I think one of the things that we've done well is, we haven't done it in a jump on the spot and pump up your chest type of way. We've done it in a really practical way with lots of support. And that's probably my favorite part about it, mate. And the people and the stories and the way that I rate Mantastic is it doesn't matter how well I'm doing, because if I'm doing great, but the program isn't doing great for anyone, then that's a massive failure. But if the community's winning and the people who are involved are getting better, and as you're aware, the journey to the top of the mountain has lots of little like bridges that you have to cross that are
Absolutely,
a rope on across a canyon. Like we got lots of stuff, but that's really that's all I rate the success on, man.
Mm. So tell me, obviously, Mantastic is there to help people out, and it's there for men. But just talk to me briefly. Who is Mantastic not for? I mean, for example, like if you had somebody coming in with the wrong attitude, would you argue that Mantastic is not for them at this stage? Like, where do you draw the line as far as who you think the program is actually going to benefit?
You'll laugh at this, mate. You ask really great questions, JNewtz. It's awesome. Following an event, like I'll often have 25 or 30 one-on-one appointments, which, it just grows year to year. And particularly in these phases of building the culture and what I've wanted stuff to stand for, we become more and more particular all the time. And so we've ran some things like, as you know, mate, like attending your comedy show, Christmas parties. You and I must have we spoke about this for the equivalent of at least 2 full days of 24 hours, 2 seasons of 24.
Exactly.
And so it really comes down to, mate, if there's just a fit, I always look at, would someone be good at our Christmas party? Is this going to be good for a person or for the person on the other side? Does the person on the other side actually want to do the journey? Because I guess in the world of, personal growth as such, there's a lot of hype, and we're not a super hypey community. We're very practical. And I base it off all of that. And I always say to everyone, like, if there's ever anyone who's like looking at becoming part of our community and they're like, I'm just not sure, I always say, well, you've got to be sure to do this. Like, it's not on me to do it, because if I push you into doing something and you do it and it's not the right thing, you're probably going to create the resentment towards me. So you've got to want to do it. There's definitely, and I think it just comes down to, is it your place to hang out? Like, is it your crew? And it's completely cool if it's not. You just got to find what your crew is. What we've found is like that flashy side of, like, we've had guys buy homes and get nice cars and, do cool things that are somewhat materialistic. But it's not a splash that type of culture. So I'm always big to look out for big ego or not coachable. I guess the whole personal growth industry as such is very like, do this in 28 days or do that in, whereas what we've found is the reason the program is we have a 12-month commitment, and after that you can stay as long as you like. And the reason it's 12 months is it takes 12 months to make significant change. And it's funny, man, like when you sit with someone and you have a conversation, you can feel whether someone wants to do something. Like you can feel whether their heart's in it and how bad they want something. And I take the responsibility of some of the initial chats that I have. I take it so seriously because there's so many of those chats that I've had and people who are now your mates, and but I remember the initial chat I had with Prahlad and where he is now.
Oh, yeah,
and what he's up to. And there's lots of those, mate. So the thing is that it's something you have to be protective of, because if we put the wrong culture in there, then people who we have loving as part of our community, such as yourself, mate, probably aren't going to want to stay around anymore, So I'm very, very aware of that. And again, like, take all business stuff aside and sales aside, etc. I've always come back to, does this make sense? Is this the right thing? If someone commits to this and does this, will they be better for it? And will they come out better for it? And there's so many amazing 12, 24, 36-month stories, 1, 2, 3 year stories. And having, the more that you get them and know them, the more you know who's right and what they've got to do, and you're able to gauge that. You never, there's definitely been times in the past where you go, you watch and you observe. But yeah, I'm big on heart, mate. Like, I love sitting with someone who wants to do something, and I think if our structure and community can help, I'll extend an invite. And there's been plenty of times where I've said this isn't your best next step, but what you should consider as the best next step is this. And I've always, got to thank you for being honest and upfront with that as well, man. So yeah, it's a real gauge. And then as Mantastic grows, and as I'm not in the role of technically in a business what you call sales, because my biggest strength is creating the content and the intellectual property. The biggest thing I'm looking for in the next person who does that is someone who doesn't have to hit a number because it's a sale, but someone who understands the right person and what they will, who's right for us. So, which probably means it'll come in some way, shape or form internally through the culture, So, hope that answers it, brother. Long-winded answer to that question.
No, it's good. It's very, very good. I mean, there's no right or wrong answers here, to be honest with you. But it does lead me on to my next question, which is, what is the next step for you as Tommy? You've had these incredible journeys in your life. From gamer, BMX rider, TomFit, Mantastic. What does the future hold for Tommy?
Yeah, great question again, bro. I think for me, there's a few things that I want to tick off. So I've spent the better part of the last couple of years in event mode. And for anyone who doesn't know, running an event takes a lot of pre, during, and post to do. And then when you're doing one every month like we have, it's been the core of building our community. In the next couple of months, I've had a book that's been sitting there that's been ready to be finished. It's got 240 pages written, and I'm glad I haven't released it because, the philosophies, the stories, they've all been refined. So keen to get that out, keen to get our podcast out, keen to get the message out even further. And then essentially, mate, like this Mantastic is working really well in Australia. I would love, that in 3 years' time, Mantastic is in Australia, the USA, the UK. The system, for me, my obsession has been, does the system work? And so through various mediums, the coaching program being one, digital programs and content being another. I would love for that to, this whole message to go worldwide. In fact, I've got some really cool news just yesterday that the US patent and trademark is all sorted, which is really good for the word Mantastic in education. Yeah, so whichever way that goes, bro. I know, what I've learned about business is you never really know. It seems to be like your market tells you what they need, like what I thought it was once going to be an app has evolved into a coaching program. And a lot of coaches have come up to me over the years and be like, well, where'd you get the blueprints of this? And I'm like, well, man, I kind of just started and we figured it out along the way. And now we've created something really cool because I've got a really great relationship with our members and they're pretty great to let us know what we want based off that core content and IP. And so I guess at the core of, if I was to summarize everything, love to be in the US, love to be in the UK, love to be in Canada. That's always been the initial vision, those 4 places. And then whichever way the system is delivered, whether that's through products and, digital products and leverage through content, or through coaching as well, like what we have at the moment, I just want to be able to take this message, man, and build, have the formula, help as many people as possible, and build strong communities around the world. And that's essentially sort of my vision for the next couple of years. I think America would do great off Mantastic. I think I would love to come and do the UK, man. Like I would love, and I'd love to do Canada as well. So, which means that, it's got to grow much bigger than myself. We've got to be able to have coaches who can coach, and understand all of the IP. And all of that's really exciting to me because the one thing I'm really proud of is that I haven't tried to do that too quick. And we've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what really works. And as you know, the term, we use it in Mantastic a bit like a front stab, as in like don't backstab with someone in the back, but front stab is just the truth and just feedback from a place of love. And so we've had lots of those as stuff has evolved. And I feel like we've got a really great formula now and recipe for success. So I'm excited to to take that and get it out there to as many people as possible, bro. It's if I trace back what my passion is, like in terms of what I love the stories and what it's done for people. Like that's number one, and then number two is just the system, knowing that like the system and the structures that we've put in place are doing the work. So then wanting to take that and see what's possible with it is pretty much the next few years, brother, through books and podcasts and digital programs and coaching programs and everything that sort of fits in line with that.
Yeah, I love this. You're basically becoming a modern day Bob Proctor and Jim Rohn, and I think that's amazing because I mean, look, I've done lots of Bob Proctor courses and read his books and listened to his recordings and so forth. And don't get me wrong, I mean, he's probably one of the life coaches I guess I've resonated with the most. But the thing that I really enjoy about your approach, you've taken a whole bunch of learnings from people like Bob Proctor, Jim Rohn, and many, many others. But as you said earlier on in this conversation, you've brought Tommy into this, and you know, you've taken the technicality away from it, and you've taken the seriousness out of it. Whereas a lot of these typical sort of life coaches and so forth, it's been that there's always been that sort of mystery of, well, I don't quite get it. And I've read these books like Think and Grow Rich and all the other type of things, and you go, I get it because I can read English, but I just don't get it. And you keep reading it in the hope that you're going to get it. And people are like, oh, it's so simple and blah, blah, blah. But you're like, yeah, but I just still don't quite get it. Whereas Mantastic and the way that you've approached things, the way you teach things, the community that you've created, it's so easy to get and understand. And even if you don't get it, you can talk to people. And I think that your vision of taking this worldwide, as you say, US, Canada, UK, and anywhere else in between, you know, I really do believe I'm speaking to, you know, the next big name in, you know, self-help for men and mental awareness for men and life goals in general for men for our lifetime. And I think maybe you don't realize exactly how important you and your role in this world really is.
Thanks, brother. I really appreciate that, mate. And yeah, that's definitely the goal, and always been the thing is what good is a really complicated thing? It's the person who shares it feels really smart, and the person who hears it goes, what does that even mean? And there's nothing in that. And so we've tried to, make it simple. And, I know there's as Jim Rohn would say, you can't manufacture antiques. It's not like there's any new information. As you know, with Mantastic, man, it's not like wake up and rub this magic oil on your belly and, tap dance with your right foot. It's very practical. And one of the things I think, I'm a huge, I know you've done a lot of Bob Proctor in the early days. I never had a granddad. Both my grandparents or granddads passed away before I was born, but I always say Jim Rohn was my granddad. When I got stuck, I must have listened to The Art of Exceptional Living hundreds of times, and every time I hear something different. And that's played a big part. And I look at Mantastic, and I think the one thing that we've done that's worked really well for us is in so many ways, bro, you imagine Mantastic as a 3-day weekend. You come in, you get the information, you get the structure, and away you go, and good luck. And what we've done is we've just stayed the course, we've got, even people like yourself, man, who've been part of our community, who are family for longer than I did my uni degree for, yeah. And we've stayed the course. And that's where, I guess in that world, I'm a really big fan of just learning a system and a structure you resonate with, getting ongoing support, having feedback, building community, and keeping it simple. So I appreciate that, mate. And that certainly, fills my bucket to charge on and do the mission even better.
No, my pleasure. Look, that's just the way I see it. So it's absolutely my pleasure. Now, listen, Tommy, wrapping this conversation up, and I really appreciate your time. You've spoken about some incredible things. Where can people find out more about you and Mantastic? Where's the go-to?
Yeah, probably the two easiest places. Mantastic.com is an easy one to remember. All the info is on there. I'm on Instagram under Tommy Mantastic, and they're probably the two easiest places, JNewtz.
Wonderful. Well, look, if any man who is out there listening wants to, improve their life, or whether they're going through a form of an identity crisis, whether their mental health is down, or they're going through a huge change in life, like their career is changed, or they've come out of a marriage, or whatever the case may be, if there's nothing that's sort of seriously, gone wrong as such, like if you just want to improve your life and move in a different direction, then I can definitely attest that Mantastic is an amazing program. So have a look at mantastic.com. Reach out to Tommy. As you've heard, like, he's got so much to talk about. He's an amazing person. And like I said, Tommy, the value that you're putting into the world, I think it's amazing. And in some ways, I think underestimated. But yeah, anyone who needs to reach out in life, mantastic.com is definitely the place to be. So Tommy Bellman, thank you so much for your time being on the Identity Crisis podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You're a legend, JNewtz, and right back at you, mate.
Thank you for listening to this episode. And remember, it's only an identity crisis if you choose to make it one. It's okay to not be okay. So speak up and talk to someone, or be the one that someone can turn to in their time of need. Don't forget to follow this podcast wherever you're listening. And if you're interested in being a guest on the show, send me an email at jnewtzcomedy@gmail.com. I'm JNewtz, and I'll see you next time.